Hello and welcome to the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce's Influencer Series, a spin-off of our highly successful Login and Learn web series. My name is Richard Pettis. I am President and CEO of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. The Influencer Series is an intimate, thought-provoking discussion with prominent community leaders about the most crucial issues facing San Antonio. Our goal is to elevate policy discussions and keep our community informed, and it has never been more necessary than today. Today's guest is my great friend, Casandra Matej. She is the president and CEO of Visit San Antonio. Visit San Antonio is the organization that is at the tip of the spear for promoting San Antonio as a premier destination for leisure travel, meetings, and conventions. Now I would like to introduce our guest. Casandra has more than 20 years of tourism experience guiding Visit San Antonio in achieving record highs in convention sales, media coverage, and traffic to their online presence, visitsanantonio.com. Casandra is an enthusiastic Texas Longhorn who holds a Bachelor of Science degree in speech communications with a concentration in organizational communications from the University of Texas at Austin. She is also the recipient of the Chamber's 2019 Tribute to Women Business Leaders Hope Award. And so I'm very excited, and I was there when we did that, and it was a great event. So thank you, Casandra. She serves in many leadership positions across the city and country, and I am pleased to share a little bit about her story with you today. Casandra, welcome to our program. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Richard. Glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So let's just jump right in. So you spent many years working in the hotel industry with your last job selling Dallas. Mm-hmm. We were lucky enough to lure you away to San Antonio, and I was proud to have been a part of that process. Cheryl Scully had asked me to be on a panel interview you, of course, and you shined just like the sun, and we're so glad that you're here. Tell me, what makes San Antonio the #1 destination for Texans?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise that any of us that live here, and in fact, it's hard to believe I just had my 9th year anniversary.
Oh my gosh, hello, congratulations, yay.
You were talking about that, and you're right. You're one of the first people, few people that I met when I came here. But there is just a draw to San Antonio. So if you think about it from a leisure visitor and how you make your decisions when your family is traveling, we are authentic. There is a unique sense of place. There is history, there is culture, and I think the people are a big draw. And of course, our food. And then many of the assets that you and I get to enjoy, whether it's our major theme parks, of course, and our museums and everything in between. So we really are that leisure destination for Texans and for visitors out of state. So that's something that's kept us top as a top visitor destination. But turning your attention to conventions, you have to look at it a little bit differently. Groups look at us because of our infrastructure, whether it's the newly renovated and transformed Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. It's got more space, it's flexible. It is a very nice facility. But what is it surrounded with? It sits on the banks of the river, which is very unique, as well as there's restaurants, hotels within walking distance. So we're a very walkable destination. So while there might be some similarities of buyers, whether it's from conventions or leisure, they're very different markets when we're talking to the different customer audiences.
Tell me about, so San Antonio, you've just outlined it very well. We're unique, we're special. How does that contrast with, for example, Dallas, your last place that you were at?
It's very different because yes, Dallas, it's a major city, and one of the big benefits of Dallas is DFW, the airport, right? It's easy to get in and out. So that is something that they sell time and time again against us. However, as you know, our efforts working with the airport and their efforts, we have, gotten more routes. I know right now in the middle of the pandemic, we're rebuilding, but the reality is that's something that they look at. They're centrally located and they have the airport, but, so that's a difference. The corporations that are in the DFW areas. When you look at that, the number of Fortune 500 companies in the Dallas area. So there was a lot more business travel in the Dallas community than what we typically see here, because we are primarily leisure as well as convention travel. But as we get new businesses, and that's why we're always very interested in what you're doing, what Economic Development Foundation is doing in bringing in new businesses, because it has a direct benefit to the travel sector. But I would argue, Dallas is very large and very sprawling, and it is hard to find that unique sense of place that we can hang our hat on.
Yes. Makes sense. You forget how different we are, and so you're just another big city, right? But when you put it in those terms of someone who's been in the industry and understands it very well, then you say, yeah, that's right, we are different, and I'd like to say we're better.
I do too. Well, and even from a convention package, the reality is they do have more hotel rooms than we do, but they do not have a tight package of hotels. And what I mean, when you have a major citywide or even event such as the beloved Final Four, people are able to walk to the venues. You can't say that in Dallas. And in fact, it costs conventioneers hundreds and thousands of dollars for transportation when they have a major event like that in Dallas.
Excellent point. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's a great clarification and a great contrast. So, Casandra, you've been here 9 years leading this organization, VSA, but you've also led the transition from the city-led Convention and Visitors Bureau to the public-private partnership that VSA is today. Tell me about how that went and maybe some of the things that you learned during that process.
When I came here 9 years ago, I know that stakeholders had been talking about it for years, that would it make sense for us to separate and not be a city department, but be our own independent organization. And so if you recall, when Mayor Ivy Taylor was in office, she put together a task force. And that task force was made up of general business leaders. It was made up of industry business leaders to really do the research. And at that given time, in the top 50 markets across the U.S., we were the only Convention and Visitors Bureau or destination marketing organization that was a government entity. There are a lot of small communities, even around Texas, around the U.S., that are still a government entity, but they're a much smaller community. The reality is very much like yourself and San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, we are a sales arm and we're trying to get groups and individuals to consider San Antonio. And especially on the group side, some of that needs to be confidential as we're bidding on them. And so, there was an opportunity during the transition to get some of that anonymity as an example. So I will tell you also, looking back, because we're now ending or on the tail end of our 4th year of being a separated entity, right? And in some of the changes that we've seen is speed of making decisions, because of course, when you're a government entity, there are levels that you need to go through, and it makes sense, right? Because it's public dollars, but we still are stewards of public dollars because we're still funded primarily from the hotel tax. But we also are a membership organization. So we introduced that a couple of years ago. So we're able to get private dollars. And then, of course, we created the Tourism and Public Improvement District. So, we learned that, or at least the results of the group at that time, was that we would like to move to a 501c6 structure. And a lot of that had to do with whether it was speed to market, whether it was being able to be more entrepreneurial in growing our budget. And pre-pandemic times, we were able to grow our budget in a 3-year time frame of over $10 million.
Wow.
So
that's real money.
Yeah, real money.
Good for you. And so do you feel it's going well?
I do. I mean, you say that, and we're sitting during this time, and so that's a whole nother discussion as well. But as far as the organization and our team, there is an energy. We were just last year recognized as a top place to work in San Antonio, so I feel like that was that says a lot, and very, very proud of that. We have been able to grow our budget due to the Texas the Tourism Public Improvement District. So we're meeting our goals, and we were achieving, whether it was record highs on group sales, whether it was the types of groups that we were bringing into the city, such as medical association groups, because you look at all of that, right? Every business is different and has different values. So no, I think it's going really well.
Good, good. So here's a personal question.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in the industry for a while, and you've faced challenges, I'm certain, along the way as a leader. Tell me about some of those challenges you faced, not necessarily in San Antonio, but just as you look back on the things that you've done. Tell me a little bit about that for our listeners.
Well, the truth of the matter is the travel industry, if there's a bad economy, we're impacted. If there's a particular industry that's, that could impact us, like the oil, if the oil industry is on a downturn, that actually impacts us because a lot of people from Houston travel to San Antonio. So, getting through economics, weather, obviously 9/11 was a real challenge for our industry, and of course now pandemic. So there, for sure, over the course of my now, I think 25 years in the business, there's been definite challenges. But what I've also seen is that we're very resilient, because people are always going to need and want to travel, whether it's personal growth or personal reasons or professional reasons, as well as the importance of face-to-face meetings. Something that people probably wouldn't expect me to talk about of being challenges was back in 2008, which the economy was one issue, but the other was we recognized as an industry that potentially the government didn't recognize the importance of face-to-face meetings. And in fact, if you recall, there were comments made of a governmental meeting happening in Las Vegas. And immediately we created what was called the Meetings Meet Business Coalition, and I've been part of it since then, that really we need to educate people about the importance of face-to-face meetings, because even if the president of the United States at that point, they were like, oh yes, it's a boondoggle going to Vegas for a meeting. Well, that's just not so. I mean, Vegas, along with San Antonio, along with all the major cities, we hold very important face-to-face meetings. I mean, think about in our own community, breast cancer symposium. The world is coming to San Antonio. Why? They're looking at research. They're looking at cures. They're looking at things to propel their industry in knowledge and in how to help the world fight breast cancer. So, you think about that, or businesses, they hold their sales meetings or their product kickoff. That is direct impact of the success of that company for that future. And so, I mean, there are important reasons why we all have face-to-face meetings, but that was a challenge, I would tell you, back in 2008, that their perception that, oh, maybe face-to-face meetings, they're just boondoggles. But I think we've done a good job to really educate communities all across the U.S. that, in fact, face-to-face meetings are important. And I always say this, Richard, meetings mean big business and big economics for San Antonio.
It's true. It's true. And I will tell you, this environment, even just you and Mike interacting this way, I mean, this has kind of been the way that we're doing it for the last, several months now. But I don't like it this way. As you've said, being in front of somebody, seeing their eyes and seeing their body language, it's different. And so we're missing that. And I can't wait to get back to the opportunity to be able to have face-to-face meetings, to be able to, do business the way we know how to do business. And that's a much more warmer way of doing business.
On the short term, and however you want to define short term, I think there's going to be a hybrid approach. I think companies are going to do a mixture, but we're already seeing it. There is interest, and we're looking at the future, because that's one thing that's really what I enjoy about our industry, and in particular Visit San Antonio, is we're booking conventions 10 years out. So we're selling the future of San Antonio. And luckily, even during this time, we're seeing some new sales for the future. So that's good. That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
That's an excellent sign. Great, great. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the tourism industry, not from pandemic, but, what it has done for this community. There's no doubt that it's impacted our community in a very positive way. Buildings, our skyline reflects the tourism and hospitality industry, the conventions industry. Tell us about the impact that hotels and tourism has had on our economy pre-pandemic.
Sure. No doubt, travel is big business for San Antonio. We represent a $15.2 billion economic impact. 1 in 7 San Antonians are employed in the industry sector. So I think, when you look at jobs or economic impact, very important. So the numbers speak volumes. I think where people may not think about it is the more visitors we have, and we have over 34 million visitors to San Antonio a year. Very proud of that, and we've seen it grow year after year. But when those visitors come here, they stay in our hotels, they pay hotel occupancy tax. 1.75% of that occupancy tax goes to the county, and that helped pay for the building of AT&T Center, where many of us have seen the Spurs play, the Tobin Center, the Performing Arts, of course, a wonderful asset.
Oh, yes.
The expansion of the river. So those dollars are used to extend the quality of life that you and I get to enjoy. And so sometimes I think people forget about that. But those same visitors are paying the hotel tax. They're also paying into sales tax. They're going to museums, they're shopping, they're dining, they're doing everything you and I do, and they're paying into sales tax, which we know goes into the general fund. So we also benefit the general fund of San Antonio. And then lastly, sometimes I think people forget that if you're a homeowner, because of the level of visitation we get and the impact we have, we save homeowners anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 a year on property tax.
Well, that's a big deal. As a homeowner, we appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, it's interesting that you say 34 million. I can remember just a few years ago, we were boasting 25 million people coming, and now we're 34 million. Wow, incredible. Thank you for your great work. It's really making a difference. Thanks. So let's move on to today. We're in the midst of that pandemic. I think one of the industries that's been hardest hit has been the hospitality, tourism, and conventions business. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing and what has been the impact.
I know we all feel like this has been years. I feel like since March, the middle of March, it's been years, but it's only been a couple of months. But think about this. From March to the end of this calendar year, we have had $200 million of negative economic impact because of cancellations of conventions.
Wow. 200 million. Oh my God.
That's nearly, I think it's like 96 groups that have canceled between mid-March and the end of the calendar year, representing that much. So, to say, and we all know, you've seen it visibly. You've seen hotels close, restaurants close, museums, attractions, they had closed. And so the impact was great. People, as far as, people losing their jobs, hotels having to furlough hundreds and thousands of people. So, everybody saw it. It smacked us right in the face. That was some of the impact that we were seeing. But I will say, I have to look, as I mentioned, to the future and to some hope. And, as of recent of June 15th, that week and this week, most of the hotels that had closed have reopened. Most of the museums have reopened, most of the attractions. So even though it was hit and we were hit hard, we are really trying to climb out of that hole and be as resilient as I know we can to survive, as well as to provide for our community.
Excellent. Well, it's a real impact, and I'm glad that you're there at the helm, because you've got a great vision and your energy is boundless. So thank you for that. So with the leisure travel in particular slowing to a trickle, what has the industry done to kind of pivot and kind of dig us out of that hole that you talked about?
And, I will tell you, sometimes things like a pandemic or any other crisis, it does force creativity even faster than what could have imagined. Look at all the programs that many of our restaurants immediately, did as far as takeouts and now food trucks and the margarita truck that Euphoria has. There has been some real creative initiatives. I will tell you, from a U.S. travel perspective, we expect it's going to be a stair-step recovery. It could take all the way to 2024 before we're really fully recovered. But we know leisure travel is going to come back first, and then business travel, and then followed probably by convention travel, right? So that's kind of what we're seeing. And so what we've done as an industry is Visit San Antonio. We tried to pivot, and I know some people hate that word right now because everybody's talking about that, but
yeah.
we also knew that we needed to focus some of our attention during this crisis on local and on helping businesses reopen. And so one of the things we partnered with was, I know you heard it, To Go for Good, which we partnered with the Restaurant Association, Culinaria, the CE Group, and we had like 50 restaurants, and a portion of that went to the San Antonio Food Bank, but we also promoted it for people to do takeout orders to generate some businesses for those restaurants. Because at the end of the day, if I'm looking at the future, if there's not hotels to go see, and if there's not museums, and if there's not restaurants for visitors to come to, then all of a sudden our attraction won't be there. So it's imperative that the businesses that make up our industry survive and thrive. So a little bit of our attention turned to that. And then, as you know, and the Chamber has been great partners in getting the word out. June 15th, we rolled out See San Antonio.
Yes.
Which focused on locals first, and 150 partners, restaurants, hotels, attractions, museums, gave whether it was discounts and deals. And you can go to visitsanantonio.com and go to See San Antonio and book your local trip right now. But we had to pause it. We went through about a week and a half, and then of course the uptick of cases. So the initiative itself is still alive and well, and it's on our website. We have just stopped proactive pushing of the message or the campaigning. But I will tell you, in the very first week, we had 35,000 people go to the microsite for See San Antonio. So it was doing its job, and people are interested. And so when people feel more comfortable, I urge locals, go stay at that hotel that you love so much, and enjoy your own destination and support our industry, and then maybe think about doing a driving or flying holiday.
Excellent. Well, I agree. And let me tell you this, Casandra, we get still on a daily basis anywhere from 25 to 40 calls a day. Mm-hmm. And it's all kind of stuff. But I would say out of those, let's say average 30, at least a good 75% are what's open, are the hotels open, can I come to the Riverwalk, what are the attractions? And so we're popping out information all the time. So there is still very much an interest. And so I'm glad the campaign is going strong. And of course, it's a little paused, but we promoted it, and we'll continue to promote it and be your partner on that. We're happy to do it.
To your point, on visitsanantonio.com, we created, because we had to close for a time our visitor information center. And so one thing that we're going to keep going on is we have a live chat on our website. So they're experts, local experts. So if you do need to know what is open or what you may want to do, or a proposed itinerary, we have live people on the other side of the chat box, and they're ready to serve you and answer any questions that we can. So, excellent. But you're right. I mean, we are seeing some traffic to not only our website, but we have reopened our visitor center, and especially on the weekends, we're seeing more traffic in there.
Excellent. Well, good. So we talked a little bit about 2021 or the future. Tell me about what 2021 looks like, particularly in the convention area. Do we still have folks on the books? What are your thoughts on us moving forward?
Yeah, so what's interesting is I can tell you, as of today in this snapshot of time, we have not had any large convention groups cancel in 2021. Ooh. It was going to be a great year. Now, the issue with this whole pandemic is it's so fluid. We know one thing today, and tomorrow is changing. So, we really hope that, of course, that there is a vaccination before the end of the year or at the first of the year, because that will be very helpful for our industry and many industries.
Sure.
But right now, as far as conventions, if it stays as today, we should have a really decent year of conventions for 2021 and beyond. But I say that because you and I could talk 2 weeks from now and it may change. Because, the reality is conventions, not only, you think about educational conferences. Well, are schools going to allow teachers to travel? Are businesses going to let their staff travel to exhibit? So there's a lot of things in decision making that we are just not in control of, but we're there. I mean, in fact, Richard, we're still holding strong that come July 19th, the Texas High School Coaches Association will be in San Antonio.
All right.
It may be the size that it once what we thought it would be, but we don't care. We need to show that we can do it safely in a manner that you can social distance and do it right. It is so symbolic that we have that conference, that it's just a must for our convention side of the business.
I think that's right. Well, while we're on this topic, tell me about some of the measures that the industry has taken to ensure the safety of employees, visitors, and customers.
Well, and again, you were part of this. We all joined force on, Greater Safer Together. And it's housed also on our website of the pledge. So many of our industry businesses have taken that pledge, but they've also enhanced. So for example, really looking at when you think of the American Hotel and Lodging Association, they were one of the first to come out on, here are going to be some of the best practices. Very limited interaction with or face-to-face with hotel employees. There's barriers when you check in. Now you can download onto your smart device. So they're trying to limit where multiple people are touching things. But of course, face mask, checking the temperature of their staff as an example, signage around whether it's the hotel or the convention center, but also the use of technology, looking at robots to clean the convention center, as an example. So looking at heightened ways, but really going through every aspect of what a consumer would be touching with their hands or walking, and saying, how can we mitigate any danger during that interaction? So they've been very proactive. And again, we kind of went a little further on the Greater Safer Together. We also have a consumer facing website on visitsanantonio.com that you can, as a consumer, look at the hotels, find out specifically what they're doing, what the convention center is doing, what the airport is doing. So before you come to San Antonio, what the different venues are doing. I mean, Six Flags Fiesta Texas, they have been an example for many of the theme parks, not only here in San Antonio, but around the state and around the country, because they've really taken it and thought of you can use your phone device to order your food. You're not standing in line at a concession stand, as an example. And I would tell you, this summer, because they're limiting their capacity, this will be the only time during a summertime that you could go to both parks and feel like you own it.
That's a great point. Get on it now, right?
No lie. No lie.
Well, that's great. These are all great examples, and all with, of course, the goal of instilling consumer confidence, getting folks back out, and making sure that they're safe and we're safe. So that's fantastic.
Well, and Richard, I will tell you, and I serve on the U.S. Travel Association board, and one of the initiatives they just pushed out is called Travel Confidently. But it's not only the venue itself, but the venue's staff. But there's a shared responsibility as you as a traveler. It takes all three. So it's a shared responsibility that we all need to take very seriously.
I agree. You're right. This doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to us.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So as we're seeing an uptick, hopefully sooner rather than later, when it's safe to reconvene, what are some of the goals that you have as an industry or you as a professional to help San Antonio recover?
So, obviously if there's a control and we see signs of moving forward, we're going to be very active regarding our See San Antonio campaign, and we'll be pushing it out all across Texas in the drive market, or even some of the touch states that are easy to get to San Antonio, either a short flight or a drive. So that will be our focus, is the See San Antonio campaign from a leisure side. We are continuing with our relationships with customers, and in fact, our touch points with our convention customers have never stopped. We are doing virtual events. We've done Texas wine tasting. We've done cooking classes. The Arcade Group and the chefs at the Marriott's, they've done cooking classes, cooking demonstrations, just to keep San Antonio in mind of our convention clients. So that hasn't stopped. But as soon as we see some sort of normalcy, we have got to engage and start talking about 2021 and start the planning process of those conventions. Because I will tell you, like with Texas high school coaches, it's no longer just, oh yeah, it's the way we've always done business. To map out the space and how it's going to be laid out is taking a whole lot longer than before. Think about this. Even like hotels had to think about how many people they will allow on their elevators. So it's every aspect. So, looking at what do our partners need in helping them. So that will be a focus of ours. What the community need, how can Visit San Antonio help from that perspective? But we hope to get back to business on securing future business for San Antonio.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I know that you will do a fantastic job. You are doing a fantastic job, and your focus has been so fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, your energy is boundless and your attitude is always so bubbly and so positive. So you're the right person to help us do it. So thank you for that. So you talked a little bit about you all as an employer and the fact that y'all were voted one of the best places to work. Tell me about your cadre of professionals that work with you there at VSA. And how are y'all managing through the stress of just this crazy time?
We weren't immune to the cuts, right? And it was devastating. And it was all over the news. We have furloughed 50% of our staff. So where we once had 80, we have about 38 team members. And, I think sometimes people think, oh, it must be all hoteliers. But, we have marketing professionals, we have PR professionals, we have sales professionals, we have service professionals. And we also have travel counselors, to do within San Antonio. So that's kind of the makeup. But, I will tell you, we probably mid to late March, we made a decision for everyone to work from home. And we still are working from home. We opened up the office on a seasonal basis and looking at that. But we're looking at to the future. Do we need that amount of space? Do we need, a lot of people have proven their productivity working from home because, our industry, very similar to many others, we're not an 8 to 5 job. There's many weekends we work, many nights we work. It just depends on when clients are here and what we need to do. And, and we also travel. And that's the other thing, making sure our employees feel comfortable traveling. I'm taking my first business trip at the end of July.
All right.
Washington, D.C. We've got a U.S. Travel Association meeting and to talk about the future of the industry. And so it's very important that if we're talking the talk, we better walk the walk as well. But I think now, as far as Visit San Antonio, we've been very flexible with our staff. We recognize that many of them are working parents, and there's been to manage that. And I think flexibility is key. But our team is working really hard and for the success of not only Visit San Antonio, but the success of San Antonio.
Excellent. Well, please do tell me how it goes in DC because we're planning our essay to DC and we don't know if we're going to do it or not.
Right.
As you've gone with us many years in a row. We generally go in February and it's all up in the air. There's still a concern, but I do think while there's a concern, there's still that desire to get out and go conquer and be smart about it, but doing what we need to do to, promote this community in DC and beyond. So
that's right.
Please do let me know how that goes.
Absolutely.
So we're coming to the end of our time. And so I want to ask you the big question, and that is, what does UT football look like in the fall?
I am hoping that we are going to have football season, right? Yes, I'm a diehard Longhorn, and I want to see my Longhorns play. But, you know, I look at how that impacts San Antonio with the Valero Alamo Bowl.
Oh,
And
yes.
football for enjoyment. We need football so we can have the bowl game right here because it's such a major economic impact. So I am all about fall ball.
Good, good. Well, Casandra, it's been a pleasure to have you join me today. Again, you're a personal friend, and I really admire you and your tenacity and again your positive attitude. It makes a difference. It's infectious, and I want to say thank you for joining us this afternoon. So before we close, I have a few reminders. Please know that the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce committed continually to be your trusted and valuable resource for all business news, particularly during these crazy, unprecedented times. Please visit our SA Chamber rapidresponse.org website for the latest information on the pandemic and things that are happening, you know, different rules that are coming out. And lastly, I'll close by reminding you about the 2020 census. You know, the 2020 census is such an important document that I'm urging everyone to fill out. You know, dollars from DC are dependent on what's happening with that census. Resources, potential political resources, that is the number of people that represent the state of Texas, will be dependent on the census. So please fill out that census. Go to 2020census.gov. You'll have all the information. Fill it out there. And with that, I say thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and we'll see you. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.